Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
Today is April 15th, and we're on page 41 in your magazines. And today we're going to hear part 2 of the article that we started yesterday entitled Adventures Around Sweden with a Boy Named Nils.
Now, don't forget, this book is in the public domain, meaning it's free to download. In fact, I downloaded it myself. You could buy it for very cheap if you wanted the book. But if you just want to read it online, type the name in and PDF. It will appear, and it's very readable. And in fact, if you're not reading the Swedish version, the strictly very textbook material talking about sizes and lengths of mountains or rivers, that stuff's cut out, and you're left with this very compact, very lovely story.
And if you want your computer to read it to you, especially if you have a tablet computer or it works fine on a phone, just make sure that you have set up your settings so that you have a voice named Alex reading it to you in American English. Now, I say that because Alex is one of the best voices of iPhone. If you have an Android, you can also find out how they can read text to you and use that method. And your phone or your tablet will read the story to you directly so you can hear it while you're following along in the text. So if you haven't done this before, I recommend you try it out. It is awesome. I've gotten through a lot of books faster that way because with somebody reading, I don't kind of doze off. I just keep following along. So download the book and then have your computer read it to you and follow along, or at least try it out and see if you like it. Okay, so we're going to continue talking about the boy named Nils. Was he a very nice, well-behaved young gentleman?
No, well, in fact, as we learned yesterday, he was quite the terror. Tripping his mother, locking his parents in a shed, hurting farm animals. Honestly, he's the kind of kid, I'd just like to kick him.
Right. That's how we all feel. But, a lot of kids behave like that. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to continue the story. We left it off yesterday at a point where Nils had just abused a little elf who came to him. Now, this little elf in Nordic folklore has a special name. It's spelled T-O-M-T-E, Tomte. And so as he started abusing or treating this elf really badly, the elf says, okay, that's what we have here. Then he went abracadabra, and Nils became very small, only the size of a human thumb. Now, let's see how much naughtiness you can do when you are just like a couple inches long. Well, let's continue now with paragraph 1 of part 2.
And the first sentence begins, when the farm animals discover that Nils is now smaller than them, they gleefully plot their revenge. However, before they can attack, Nils sees the family's pet goose Martin preparing to join a flock of wild geese. Nils jumps on his back, and together they fly away to see the world.
The wild geese are not pleased that the cruel little boy and his pet goose are following them. So the geese devise a plan to take them on a perilous adventure across Sweden. The trip is extremely exciting and informative. As Martin and Nils fly over each area, they take note of its features and economic resources. However, trouble soon sets in. Nils and Martin fly off and spot a fox who's planning to devour some sheep. They manage to save the sheep by tricking the fox into getting caught on a fence. Their problems are far from over, though. Soon after, some hunters try to kill Martin, with their shots only just missing the mark. Next, Nils gets separated from Martin and is kidnapped by a murder of evil crows. The greedy crows force Nils to help them open a bottle filled with silver coins. Nils opens the jar, but he creates a distraction by spilling the silver coins and manages to escape. Then he finds Martin, and they decide to fly home.
Upon reaching the farm, Nils learns his parents are planning to cook Martin for dinner. When Nils tries to save his friend's life, the elf's magic spell is suddenly broken, and Nils is restored to his normal size. In the end, Nils' parents spare Martin's life, and from that day onwards, Nils vows to befriend and be kind to all animals.
And hopefully to his parents as well?
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, okay. So the story really keeps us on the edge of our seat. To keep someone on the edge of their seat, that means you are in suspense. That means you constantly don't know what's going to happen. Because yesterday at the end, Nils was being really naughty, but an elf actually found a way to make him behave better, and that is by shrinking you. Because if your enemies are much larger than you, you're probably not going to be so mean because you might get eaten up. So once these animals discover that Nils is now bigger than them, smaller than them, they are going to try to get revenge. And that's the thing. If you are going to be mean to someone, you think you're stronger than them, maybe someday you won't be stronger than them, and then people are going to want to get revenge. So we're always on the edge of our seat. We're always wondering what's going to happen to Nils now, because all those bad things he did are going to follow him around. So back to the first paragraph.
When the farm animals discover that Nils is now smaller than them, they gleefully plot their revenge.
All right, gleefully means very happily. Now you think, if you're being mean, why should you be gleeful? Well, we're going to give you a more complex word.
I'm looking at what Karen is writing, and
there
I
it is.
wrote
It's
the
exactly
same
what you're thinking.
word.
It's a German word that we use to describe this kind of happiness. It's a German word called Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude, and it's capital S because nouns in German are capitalized. Capital S-C-H-A-D-E-N. Schaden means harm. Freude is F-R-E-U-D-E. Schadenfreude. Now you think, why should I learn a German word? It's because we use this word in English quite a bit. It's a very well-known word. And if somebody has very bad luck, gets hurt, or something negative happens, you think, ha, 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 ha. You're kind of happy because maybe that person was kind of a show-off and proud and mean, and now they're sort of being punished for it. So when you're happy about somebody else having something bad to them, we call that Schadenfreude. And these animals were treated badly. I don't blame them one bit for feeling Schadenfreude.
I agree. I think a lot of people believe that taking joy in the misfortune of others is bad form, but there's something poetic. There is poetic justice in seeing someone that acts poorly find themselves in a spot of trouble feels very satisfying. And I can't lie, I thoroughly enjoy seeing that sometimes.
Because you feel this person was so bad they deserve punishment,
Right.
But nobody punished them. But now fate has punished them. Fate is our destiny. Nobody had to go to a judge or a policeman or somebody in the government to say this person did bad things, punish him. You didn't have to do that. The bad things just happened, and he deserved them. And Chris used an expression that's really good to describe this kind of situation. It's called poetic justice. Poetic is the adjective for poem. So if something is written like a poem, it's poetic. P-O-E-T-I-C. P-O-E-T-I-C, poetic. And justice means people get what they deserve, whether good or bad. So we had a case of poetic justice. He was bad, he deserved punishment, and he got it.
Let's continue on with our second sentence.
First, let's remind everybody, besides gleefully, note the expression plot, which means to plan. Revenge is getting back at someone for something they did. So gleefully plot their revenge. These are good expressions to know. Okay, now.
And now sentence 2. However, before they can attack, Nils sees the family's pet goose Martin preparing to join a flock of wild geese.
All right, so now the animals are getting ready to attack our anti-hero Nils. They're going to attack Nils for being so mean. But before they have enough time to get their attack ready, Nils sees the family's pet. Now, this is an animal that you raise, not usually to eat, but to play with and provide companionship. So Nils sees their family's pet, which happens to be a goose. The goose is named Martin. In American, we usually say Martin. So Martin is not wrong, but usually we say Martin. And he just wants to fly away now and join a whole bunch of wild geese.
Now, geese are very common animals all over the world in our colder areas of the world, and therefore there are a lot of expressions and words related to them. Probably the most famous is what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
And the goose is the female.
That's
and the gander is the male.
This is exactly where I'm going because a lot of people tend to misunderstand this. They believe that a gander is just a group of geese. But actually, there's a specific word for that. A group of geese is called a gaggle. Gaggle.
And I'm afraid that gaggle and gander, they look too similar, so people mix them up. But goose is technically the female. The gander is the male. So if it's good enough for the female, it should also be good for the male.
That's exactly right. That this term does not mean, well, you have to be fair to everyone. Really, in history, this term means if you want to treat, if a female has to follow these laws, then the men have to follow these laws as well. Because as we know in the past, that females often were
mistreated.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great word for it. Just plainly mistreated. If females have to follow this law, then so do men. It's good for the goose and it's good for the gander.
All right. So this goose probably has had enough of Nils itself. So it's saying, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go join some wild geese and fly away. And so the next sentence.
Nils jumps on his back, and together they fly away to see the world.
Which is a great turning point of the story, because starting from here, we can see how a good author could introduce all different parts of Sweden because they're flying away and they're going to see different parts of the country. Next sentence, first sentence of the next paragraph. The wild geese are not pleased that the cruel little boy and his pet goose are following them. So the wild geese actually know these people apparently, and the goose, and they think, we don't need this kind of trouble in our group. We get along very happily and harmoniously. They're probably going to make trouble. So all these wild geese, okay, that's the plural, not gooses, it's geese. These wild geese are thinking, hey man, we don't really want you in our group. To continue, so the geese devise a plan to take them on a perilous adventure across Sweden. So they're thinking, you guys are homebodies. That's one word. A homebody is someone who always stays at home. You have a very good word for it in Chinese that comes from Japanese, and I will say it because it's not Chinese, otaku. We've heard the word otaku, somebody who's always at home on their computer or something. So they think, you guys are just people who hang around home. I bet you can't handle this really tough, demanding, long-distance flying. So we're going to give you a run for your money. A run for your money is we're going to give you a big challenge, and we'll see how you handle it. Okay, so a perilous means dangerous. Perilous, perilous. The trip, sorry?
And before we continue, to devise a plan means to make a plan, but this is negative. Karen and I maybe will want to get lunch later. We will not devise a plan to buy lunch.
Well, it implies a level of difficulty. So maybe we're stuck in a room and we don't have the key. So let's devise a plan to get out. That means something unusual is happening or there's difficulty involved. Our plan was when our recording engineer comes back, we start waving our arms and say, please open the door.
This is decidedly different than make plans, which is almost always positive. We're going to do something wonderful. Devising a plan is most definitely not an instantly positive experience.
Next sentence, the trip is extremely exciting and informative. Now, this is a pretty easy sentence. Just watch out for exciting. Don't mix it up with excited. So, for example, a lot of people will say, oh, I feel very exciting. Now, that's really weird, and it's kind of being a show-off. I feel excited. What I see is really exciting. The thing is exciting. My feeling is I feel excited. Please spend some time trying to sort that out because it's a common mistake.
One thing I like to say when I teach the endings in ed and ing, I always tell my students, ed is for me and ing is for the thing. And I write the ed on the board and then I write an M above that E so we can see I feel ed and that thing is exciting. And I emphasize the INGs in the two words.
That's an excellent way to teach it. I hope you all were paying attention. When you see ING, think thing. The thing is exciting. And for excited, that's what I feel. All right, informative. That is related to the word for, well, we have the verb to inform, means to tell somebody about something. We have information, which everybody talks about all the time now. If something provides you with a lot of interesting, useful information, it is very informative. So this adventure turns out to teach Niels and his goose a lot of interesting new things. Our next sentence, as Martin and Niels fly over each area, they take note of its features and economic resources. Now it's starting to sound a little more like a textbook. Features are just things that are special about something. That means it's traits, T-R-A-I-T plus S, traits. That means whatever is special about this place. And economic resources, those could be things, for example, like coal and oil, or maybe some crops. That means some plants that you grow or animals that people raise. All of those are economic resources. So they learn about each part of Sweden, what's special about it, and what kinds of things help people make money.
So the word area means province, which is what we saw yesterday. Province, P-R-O-V-I-N-C-E. And Lagerlöf wrote about each province of Sweden except one. And in fact, the people, as this book became popular, the people of this province felt terrible about that. And so she later updated the book with a second edition and ensured that she talked about this one province that she did not mention because she confessed it was a slightly boring place.
But I believe that however boring a place is seen to be, you can always find something. You're not looking close enough.
This was, 120 years ago. So I believe we can be forgiven for sometimes not having the foresight of kind of thinking we want to say as a nod to all the provinces of Sweden, in this textbook, we should find something.
That's right. People don't like being left out.
Yeah.
None of us do.
Especially the only province.
Yeah, why me? What's wrong with me? Do I smell bad? What's wrong? Okay, next sentence. It's very short, but it's a very useful phrase. However, trouble soon sets in. Sets in means that slowly you start to see where things are going wrong. It doesn't happen all at once. Sets in means slowly you can see things that are leading to something not so good.
It looks like the word settle, S-E-T-T-L-E.
The next sentence, Niels and Martin fly off and spot a fox who's planning to devour some sheep. Now, everything is pretty easy. A fox, you probably know this animal, but devour is a word for eating something very, very hungrily and fast and greedily.
You might know the word voracious, V-O-R, that has a root meaning to eat quickly.
Okay, our next sentence, they managed to save the sheep by tricking the fox into getting caught on a fence. Now that's pretty clever. If you can get the fox stuck in the fence, you can probably get the sheep to safety. Next sentence, their problems are far from over, though. That's another great expression. So we've solved this problem, but we still have lots of other problems. That means that our problems are far from over. That means there's still a lot of things we have to do to solve all of our problems. And we put though at the end of the sentence. We could have said however at the beginning. However, their problems are far from over. I think that this way it's more effective, though. Their problems are far from over, though. On to the next sentence. Soon after, some hunters try to kill Martin with their shots, only just missing the mark. So more danger comes along. After we took care of the fox, there's some humans who want to kill Martin. That would be maybe a good dinner for them. And they shot their guns, and they almost shot Martin, but they missed by just a little bit, so Martin survived. He lived. Next sentence. Next, Niels gets separated from Martin and is kidnapped by a murder of evil crows. A murder just means a group or a flock. We almost never, ever use this word like this, a murder of crows. You learn it in funny lists, but you almost never read it or say it or write it. So this is a time when they actually use the expression, a group of crows, they call them a murder of crows. So Niels and his dear pet goose, Martin, they get separated, and then some crows kidnapped. Who gets kidnapped? Is it Niels or Martin?
That would be Niels, actually. Niels gets kidnapped by this murder of crows, and as Karen said, that this is a phrase, you'll see it, but most people don't use it every day. However, there are a few of these kind of unusual groups that we talk about. Earlier, we mentioned a gaggle of geese. We might say a pack of dogs or a parliament of owls.
I wouldn't say that one, but I would say a pride of lions.
A pride of lions is a great one.
Yeah.
Be careful when you look these up because there was a book in 1968 by James Lipton that came up with the phrase an exaltation of larks. And after that, it became a popular thing to just make up ridiculous phrases with animals. It's very tricky to know what is common and not common here. But it is important to note that this phrase, it's over 700 years old. And it was created after some people saw a circle of crows kind of almost having a trial of this one crow. And they suddenly swoop down, attack, and murder it. And it had not been seen often ever since then. But interestingly, just recently, some scientists have actually re-observed this behavior.
Oh, my goodness.
Crows circled around another crow.
They were holding
and
a trial.
For whatever reason, they suddenly attack and kill the crow, hence a murder of crows.
I had no idea.
That's bizarre, isn't it?
Usually we just say a flock. That's good enough usually.
I agree.
Okay, let's continue. The greedy crows force Nils to help them open a bottle filled with silver coins. I think this is pretty easy. So there's a bottle, it's got coins in it, and the crows can't open it by themselves, but actually crows are extremely clever. I bet some crows maybe could find a way to open it. And Nils opens the jar, but he creates a distraction by spilling the silver coins and manages to escape. So Nils does open this jar or bottle for the crows, but he wants to get out of there because he's kind of afraid of these evil crows. So he distracts their attention. He spills the coins out, and then the crows probably go after the coins so that Nils is able to run away. He manages to escape.
When we manage to do something, it means you can complete it, but it's not easy. So you just barely are able to do it.
Right. Next sentence. Then he finds Martin, and they decide to fly home. Sounds like we're getting close to the end of our adventure here.
And our third paragraph begins, upon reaching the farm, Nils learns his parents are planning to cook Martin for dinner. Now, I don't know about cooking the family pet, but this is a farm.
Yeah, it is a farm. And sooner or later, even though if you have feelings for some of the animals, a lot of them end up being eaten or sold to be eaten.
When Nils and Martin finally reach the farm, Nils is a little bit heartbroken, honestly. The elf offers to return him to the size of a regular boy, but he doesn't want this. He likes his freedom. He likes the adventures he was having, and he's like, you know what? I want to hang out with my buddy. But Martin is going to get cooked. And now, kind of Nils' hand is forced here. What does he do?
Let's find out.
When Nils tries to save his friend's life, the elf's magic spell is suddenly broken, and Nils is restored to his normal size.
So that means that right when his friend Martin, the goose, is in trouble, the elf's magic spell, that means he used magic to make Nils really small, that magic is done being effective so that Nils goes back to, restored means goes back to his normal size, just like any other boy.
In the end, Nils' parents spare Martin's life, and from that day onwards, Nils vows to befriend and be kind to all animals.
So it's a happy ending, but it was not at all boring working through this story.
And in fact, Selma Lagerlöf had a little bit of a happy ending herself following the completion of the story.
What was that?
Well, Selma, of course, in 1909, becomes the first woman to win the Nobel Prize in Literature, and she is able to use the money that she wins to buy back her family farm.
Oh, my
As we
goodness.
learned in day one, that Selma decided to become an author when her father became very ill, and she read the Bible and felt it was so powerful that she wanted to create powerful stories for herself. And as her father was so sick, he fell behind in bills and they lost the family farm. She left the home that she had grown up in, and she used that money to buy back the home. Her father had unfortunately already passed away, but she lived there for the very rest of her life.
Now that sounds like a good example of the Chinese idea of filial piety is being really good to your parents. That is so inspiring. That's it for today. Please tune in next